I'm Barry Price, and my background actually is largely in sales and particularly in franchising. If you want a bit of history, my wife and I started a small swim school. It got really big really quickly, and we developed and grew into a business which was eventually unable to manage any further growth. We didn't really know how to go about it, so I looked into what are the best ways to actually reach out to the areas where we're in demand, but we actually can't fulfill lessons because we were struggling with the growth, as it were. So we looked at various different options and investigated franchising, which seemed to me to be the best way to do it. The thing for me with franchising is that the franchisee who invests in the business has a vested interest, wants the business to grow, needs the business to grow. Therefore, they work differently to the other structure which we had considered, which was let's get some managers around the country and help grow the business that way. I couldn't be sure that we would control the quality of what we were doing. So we decided ultimately to franchise. We did it very much on our own without any BFA guidance or help, or we didn't do any mapping, would you believe? I did my own maps because I was mean and I didn't want to spend the money on getting someone else to do this work for us. I wrote my own contracts. I did everything. We grew very, very quickly. And eventually I did have to catch up with everything. Again, strangely, apart from mapping, we had gone to the point with our mapping that I had done where we couldn't really ever revert back to a structured, organized mapping company. The franchisees were already up and rolling. They were trading. I couldn't really go about changing the boundaries. So I think I probably had a little mental note there that if I ever did that again, I would do it properly. And that lesson stayed with me right through until when we started the Bike Fitters. When the Bike Fitters opportunity was shown to me, it was, will you just have a look at this and tell us what you think? Is it a viable franchise or it isn't? And I drew comparisons back to the days of when the sewing business started. Here we have, with the Bike Fitters, offering a service that at the moment no other company offers. There is nobody in the UK and beyond who offers the service that we now provide. So there's a gaping hole in the market and we can fill it. We actually had that first meeting just to look at the business and talk to Simon, who was the original bike fitter, to see quite what was he doing and how could we grow it. And the obvious way to grow it for me was by franchising it. So we created the business model. And at that point, I knew that what we had to do was do everything not the way I had done it with my swimming company, but let's get all the approved service providers in place who can help us to structure this. And I wanted the BFA to be very involved in what we were doing so that anybody that we talk to, whether it's a prospective franchisee, a prospective customer, perhaps a national supplier or a manufacturer, they all know that we're carrying what we call the kite mark of credibility, and that really is a very, very big, important tool with whoever you speak to. So all of our suppliers are BFA approved, and we were determined to get the mapping done properly this time. That's what took us into the franchising on the Bike Fitters. I'm pleased to say it's going well. It's going better than we thought it would have gone. The franchisors typically we're all the same type of breed. We're all looking to grow and develop our business, and mostly this has come from the success that we had in running the business on our own before we moved onto the franchise model. What the difference being when you are actually running the business. So if I rewind back to the time that my wife and I were running the lessons, we at that point would always tell people if they asked us, what do you do for a living? We run a swim school. But when you start franchising, you don't run a swim school anymore. You're now running a franchise business that teaches people to swim. So your attitude has to change and your focus has to change. So no longer can my wife, who loves swimming, she can't smell the chlorine anymore. She has to be in the office. And that change for some franchisors is troublesome, or it's problematic, and some just don't like it, don't want to make that change. I'm not saying that would result in a franchise business not succeeding, because that would be an unfair generalization, but in some cases that can be an obstacle to the type of growth and development that a franchise business could enjoy. You have to wonder, why am I buying this franchise? What is the reason for me not to just try and do this business on my own? Now, with the swimming school business, we had a reason. We had a lot of national accounts where franchisees were benefiting from access to pools that otherwise they would never have been able to get. Similarly, now with the bike fitters, we have a method and a model for training people that is unique. It's not just unique in the UK, it's unique. There's no one else teaching the way we are, or training people in the methods that we use, which are very successful. But also, we have now cultivated the national relationships that will help to sustain and future-proof the business as well. So anybody who wants to just be a bike fitter wouldn't be able to get that type of work or enjoy the benefits of those type of relationships. So any franchise business needs to be able to say to their franchisee or their applicant, you can't do this on your own. You would not be able to get access to, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things, whatever they may be. And that's what makes the business more successful. The funny story is the guy who invented the Big Mac was a guy who worked in the back of a restaurant somewhere in America, and he was on his lunch. He just sort of messing around with a couple of pieces of bread, and he created what was later on called the Big Mac. So he then talks to the head office and he said, look, I've got a great idea. What do you think? They listen, because that's what franchisors should do. And all of a sudden, it's the biggest selling hamburger in the world. In our business, we have a lot of suppliers who are recommended, but not essential. It's not essential that the franchisee uses those suppliers. But we have some suppliers of services who are mandatory. And I'll use the example of payment processing, where the franchisee will just have to use whoever we recommend. That's it. There is no discussion on that matter. Everyone uses the same provider. But as the business develops and turnover increases, so does obviously the turnover with the card payment processing company. As a group, we can then work on getting better deals, whether it's with the existing provider or perhaps we go to a new provider. That's the way in which we can function as a franchisor to help the franchisee make more money. And that happens quite a lot. Territory mapping is really, really crucial, and it's becoming really, really clear to me that we made a really good decision to actually put it into place. And so now when somebody rings up and they want to talk to us about franchising, the first thing that we'll do is we'll get their postcode. We may have it already, and we'll look and see where they are in the country, where they are in relation to existing territories which have been awarded, and how we might be able to evolve and develop with that person. Because when we're functioning in the recruitment world, we've got to have our mapping stuff switched on so that when somebody rings, we can talk to them straight away. This is the territory, send them a map, show them where the territory is. The territory report is fantastic. I love it. It's just so good and easy to show and professional. So we send it to the inquiring person. They can see exactly what they're looking at, go off and do their own due diligence, but they've got such a good start. My first knowledge of Smappen was when one of your guys just contacted me out of the blue and said, have you ever looked at our program? And the answer was, no, I haven't, but I was very pleased to look at it, and very, very impressed with the way it presented. Visually, I think you have a wonderful product. Visually, the product looks better, and I liked the way it was fresh, and it's just a little bit easier to use in terms of the overall design. It looked more modern to me. Your price point is massively less than anybody else that we've come across in terms of price points. Therefore, that's for a new business, and we are at that stage, a very new business. We're looking to reduce our costs or keep our costs to a minimum whilst we start to evolve and develop. So we looked at Smappen when we had 2 franchise territories. Therefore, our business is not going to grow based on the money that people pay to buy the franchise. It's based on the MSF that we earn from their turnover, management service fee. Therefore, we have to watch our costs. So there's a very attractive reason to look at Smappen. My first go, it didn't work because there were some things about Smappen programming. I don't remember what they were, but there were some things which weren't quite what we needed and what we were used to. But in honesty, once we spoke about these issues, the guy who was dealing with me, he went away, spoke to technical. He said, give me time, I'll work it out. And I didn't hear anything for a couple of months. Right out of the blue, he gets on the phone again. He said, we've done it. He said, we've worked it out. We understand what you wanted. We've managed to find a way to make it happen. And all of a sudden now we have a product that we can look at. You know, we talked about listening to customers before. I said whatever it was that we needed, and you did it. So you do listen, you did listen. And that to me was a very, very good sign of a service provider that I was keen to work with. But let's say you're very approachable and you're very easy to contact. If we've got a problem, somebody gets onto a Teams or a Google Meet and deals with the problem, sorts it out, explains it. Chances are we didn't understand, and you show us, and that's great. You know, that's the sort of customer service that we need. Because yes, it's a very, very useful tool. It's a very good way of running your franchise business. So sure, I recommend you.